Hey guys, what's up? Tim Queenie, and today we're going to talk about what is the best lens for a content creator who wants to create video content on social media. Now, this video is intended for beginners. We're not going to go into too many technical details and keep it really simple so you can just have an idea like what is the best lens that you should buy when you're getting started. Now, my preferred camera system is from Sony. I personally own the A6600, but you could also get a ZV-E10 or one of the full-frame models. This camera uses an APS-C sensor, so all the lenses are optimized for this sensor. So keep that in mind. If you're looking for some equivalent, you have to multiply this by 1.53 if you want to buy an equivalent lens on a full-frame sensor. But luckily, most full-frame sensors from Sony also support an APS-C mode. Hey guys, what's up? Tim Queenie. And today we're going to talk about what is the best lens for content creators who want to get started with creating video content for social media. So no matter if you want to create some content for YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, or LinkedIn, this will help you to make a good decision on what camera system to invest into and what should be your first starter lens. Now, I personally am a big fan of Sony cameras because they have the best autofocus in the world. Right now, you can see it has eye autofocus. It recognizes my face and always makes sure that my eyes are always in focus. I own the A6600 from Sony, but you could also get a ZV-E10 or one of the full-frame models and use the APS-C mode for the following lenses. The two lenses we're going to compare today are optimized for the APS-C sensor. We are going to compare the Sigma 16mm with f1.4 and the Sony 11mm with an f1.8. So now let's switch on to the Sony and you will see what the immediate difference is. I'm going to show you what both lenses will look like. And I'm also going to show you how far you have to be away depending on the different focal lengths to get the same image of framing or composition. So let's start with the Sony first. Now I switched on the Sony 11mm f1.8. Now what you're seeing right now is the Sony 11mm f1.8. What I've done is I moved myself closer to the lens because this is a much wider angle lens. And as you can see, it's really close to my body, meaning I can reach out and grab the camera. This is really ideal for recording in small environments, like if you have a small room to film in or a small bedroom in a hotel room. It makes everything look much bigger and it also allows you to film in places such as like taking a train ride or flying on an airplane, because you can just hold the camera in front of you and you can still see your entire face and you're not zoomed in. What you have to keep in mind with this lens is because it's such a wide angle lens, you can't get too close, otherwise your face might get a little bit warped. As an example, now I'm about 10 centimeters away from the lens and it doesn't really look good. Now let's switch over to the Sigma 60mm at f1.4. Now I'm filming on the Sigma 60mm f1.4, and as you can see, the background is much blurrier and much bigger. That's because I didn't move away from the camera. I'm still the same distance away as when I filmed the Sony 11mm at f1.8. So what I have to do is I actually have to move myself back to make my face smaller in proportions. Now I moved myself back, and as you can see, the background is still much blurrier than on the Sony 11mm. But you also have to see that I've now really reached out, like I'm stretching out my arm entirely and I can't touch the lens. While before, when I did this, I was reaching far beyond the camera. So I need a bigger space when I want to record. As an example, if I was filming in public and I wanted to get the same image sitting down on a park bench or something like this, then I might have to put the tripod right in the middle of the walkway and someone might just bump into it and knock it over to get your camera broken, which would of course be very undesirable. Now, if you're wondering what those F numbers mean, it means basically how far can the lens open up. And the further the lens can open up, the smaller the F number. As an example, if you had something like f1, that would mean the lens is entirely open 100%. If you have something like f22, that's almost like a needle hole. And the effect is that the smaller the opening, the sharper the background, like all the way to infinity. So if you have a very high F number, such as f22, means the opening is almost shut, is almost as small as the needle hole. But the background will completely be in focus from all the way to the first focal point, all the way to infinity. The downside of having a large f number is that you also get a much smaller amount of light onto your sensor, meaning that only works really well during daytime when it's really bright and light. If you want to film at a high f number in the morning, early morning hours, or in the evening, or in low light, or at night, you will get pitch black footage. You will not be able to see anything. Now, if we open up the aperture and we're going down in f numbers all the way down to, in our case, f1.4, which is almost entirely open, the effect is we're getting so much more light on the sensor, meaning the camera will be able to get a clear image without too much noise in very dim conditions, such as filming indoors, when it's like evening, early morning hours, or even at night. All you need is a little bit of background light and you can get really good footage with this f number. Another benefit of having a wide aperture is that you're getting this background blur. The wider the opening, the more background blur you're gonna get. But one thing you have to keep in mind is even at a smaller f number, meaning the opening is a little bit smaller, you can get better performance if you're using an LED light and attaching this to your camera. Because the further you are away from a light source, the less light is going to be reflected back to the camera. So right now I'm filming with an LED light indoors, and you're going to see the difference when I'm switching now back to the Sony, but moving myself closer to the camera. As you can see now that I'm back on the Sony 11mm at f1.8, I'm also much closer to the light source, so my face overall is more evenly lit. And that means that even when the aperture cannot be open as wide as the Sigma, you can still get brighter footage if you're just combining this with like an LED light on your camera. Now, which lens is the best one? If you want to have the most flexible lens that will work in most environments, that means you have to account that most environments might have very little space for you to film. Then I would definitely recommend to take the Sony 11mm at f1.8. You can do vlogging with it. You can hold the camera in arm's length without having to overextend, and you can still see your entire body. You can film in small environment. You can film on a hotel room. You can film on a public bench without having to worry that someone will knock over your tripod when you're filming. You can easily film while you're traveling, on a train, on a plane. It's very flexible, and it's also like a very lightweight lens that doesn't require too much weight, and it's also not too bulky, and it's not sticking out too much. It can get you really great results if you combine this with like an LED light, especially if you're filming like in pitch black dark. You don't even have to have that powerful of a light because it can just be closer to your face. On the other hand, if you are looking for the maximum amount of bokeh or background blur, and you're usually filming like in a fixed setup, like a studio, then you can look for the Sigma 16mm at f1.4. This way you can get a little bit further away from your camera. You might put like your computer setup in between, and you can also use your studio lighting to create the perfect environment for maximum background blur. And some people also prefer to have the camera a little bit further because sometimes it can feel a little bit intimidating having the camera right into your face, and by just pushing it back a little bit, it can feel like less that someone is like watching you all the time. You might feel more relaxed, and it will also be more forgiving for making eye contact. As an example, right now I'm looking at the lens, and right now I'm looking right in the middle of the lens. Can be actually quite noticeable if you are that close. But if you have a 60mm lens and you're doing the same thing, the eye movement has to be much smaller, and it still looks like you have better eye contact with the lens when you're recording this. So in summary, if you're starting out, I recommend that you either get the Sony a6600 or the Sony ZV-E10 and combine this with a Sony 11mm at f1.8 lens. If you're primarily filming in the studio, you can opt in for the Sigma as your primary lens first. So the upgrade ladder, I would recommend start out with the Sony 11mm f1.8 and then later buy the additional Sigma f1.4 to have more flexibility in terms of setup and overall kind of composition that you can create with both cameras. If you want to get more videos about content creation and how to get started creating video and written content on different platforms, make sure that you subscribe, hit the notification bell and smash the like button, and I see you soon. Bye.